In the first video, we talked about problems the relationship can face. Now let's talk about ways to make the relationship better so that when you do have conflict in a relationship, it's not unmanageable, it becomes a little easier to deal with. And in communications, we talk about communication climates, which is a little bit different than how Dr. Gottman talks about it, but we're still applying his principles towards that. A positive communication climate sets the stage for when you have a conflict, it's just not as big of a deal because you respect, you care about one another, and you know how and where you stand with that other person in the relationship. Plus, by this point, maybe you have a whole history of successfully dealing with conflict with that person, and so you're not as afraid or scared to approach it. When you have a negative communication conflict or climate, however, that conflict can suddenly become much of a bigger deal. You're much more likely to get defensive or stonewall because that climate is not in place, that stage is not set for positively dealing with conflict. So 3 things he talks about, and we're going to talk about how they improve the communication climate, is first of all enhancing love maps. In an earlier chapter, we talked about intimacy and how in order to have intimacy or that feeling of closeness and connection with another person, you really need to experience self-disclosure. I share a little bit about me, you share a little bit about you. That mutual disclosure goes back and forth, and over time you get to know one another. But this can't stop. It needs to continue to go on throughout the relationship, telling the other person what you care about, your hopes, your dreams, aspirations, and ask them what's important to them, and listen. And that's going to help enhance that sense of intimacy, which will help the relationship longer term. Another thing is to nurture fondness and admiration. You're with that person for a reason. You like them, you respect them, they have traits and qualities that you think are fabulous. Now, don't just keep all that bottled up inside you. Get it out of your mouth and let them know why you like them and why you care about them. And regularly express to them why you think they're so great and how you feel about them sincerely in a way that they know you really care. And the third one is so simple and it's so easy not to do. Turn towards. Listen to what the other person has to say. No matter how tired you are, no matter how many times you've heard this story, just listen, smile and nod, I always say, act like you're paying attention to them, and just respond when they talk to you. If they say, oh my gosh, that totally reminds me about that time back in high school, and you just kind of ignore them and let it go. No, the proper response is, which time, what happened in high school now? And then listen to what they have to say, listen to their story. You may be tired, you may have a million other things going on, but it's not that much effort to turn toward and let the other person know that you care about what they have to say. Now, when the conflict actually comes up, or when you need to start a conflict, let's talk about six things you can do, again, to try to make this conflict go a little smoother. And these employ some of the things we talked about in the first video as well. First of all, it's okay to complain about issues, but don't complain about the other person. Don't blame it on who they are or what type of person they are or what they've done. Just talk more in general about what the problem is. Using I statements, number 2, takes responsibility for some of the issues. How does it affect you? How does it make you feel? And not it's all about the other person, but conflict takes 2 people. So how does it affect you? Number 3 ties into number 1 again, but describing the issues without necessarily assigning blame or judging the actions of the other person as right or wrong or good or bad. Just as neutrally as you can, what happened, what set the stage for this conflict, and then talk about it. Don't necessarily point it at the other person as being their fault. Number 4 is set clear expectations. What do you actually want to get out of this? Have you ever been in a fight and there reaches a point where they've said you're sorry, they said they're sorry, and you're just mad? You're still mad. There's nothing they can do to make you feel any better, but that's not fair. And somewhere deep in your heart, you got to know that's not fair. So what do you actually want to come out of this? How do you want to resolve this conflict? And if it can't go anywhere else, it's going to have to die right there. So make sure you have an expectation of what you want the other person to do. And again, they may or may not be able to do it, but at least you know where you want the conflict to end up. Be polite. All of those nice things that your mama taught you growing up. Don't interrupt. Listen to what they have to say. Don't roll your eyes at the other person. Don't huff out of the room. Just the polite things for setting the stage that I'm paying attention to you. And finally, be appreciative. Tell them what they do right as well as what the problem is. And that way you're at least expressing admiration and appreciation as well as the issues. So hopefully these things will help you when the next conflict comes up.